Okay, so when we're warming up here, we want to factor the following, then solve. So here, there's only two terms. So there's kind of, I can print you guys a graphic organizer to help you out. If there's only two terms, the only thing that you can do is usually pull out a greatest common factor. Okay, there's another thing you can do, but we haven't learned it yet. Here, for number 2, there are 3 terms, 1, 2, 3. That's the mod table. So know the difference between the two. If there are 1, 2, and 3, that's that MA table that we did yesterday. And then this, there's only 2, so we're the GCF. Okay, so the GCF, when I walked around, I did see some of you start getting it. The GCF was 4 and what else? What else is common? X. Very good. Okay, so 4 divides into 4 evenly, and 4 divides into 28 evenly, and that's why 4 is the greatest common factor. So all I'm going to do is write that off to the side, 4x, and I got my big group of parentheses ready to go because that's what factoring is. You're factoring it out, you're pulling it on the outside. Now, it's up to you if you chose to do this step or not. Some people like to write this out. Divide each one by the GCF. We'll go in order. 4 divided by 4 goes away, or it's just 1. Well, what's x squared divided by x? Just x. Very good. Bring down the minus sign. 28 divided by 4. 7. Okay, and then the x goes away. We're gone. Now the last and final step is just to break these into two different factors and set them equal to 0. So I have 4x equals 0, and I have x minus 7 equals 0. So x equals what number when I solve for this one? Careful. I think you're thinking about subtracting, but right now, very common error. If it's attached and there's no sign there at all, there's no adding, subtracting, divide. Yes, so this really means multiplication, which means we have to do the opposite, which is divide, which gets you 0. Then here I have to add 7 to both sides, and I get a positive 7. So those are my 2 answers. 2 solutions. Does anyone remember what I said those really mean, what you just found on the graph? Yeah. Yeah, very good. That really just means what you just figured out is where the graph is crossing the x-axis, which is your x-intercept. So to actually understand what you're doing could guide you along the way instead of just doing this procedure over and over again, actually understanding what you're doing. You're finding the solutions, where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so that was GCF. Now let's talk about this mod table. There's 1, 2, and 3. Let's see if you can remember. What multiplies to what number? Good, negative 14. And adds to what number? 5. Awesome. Okay, now today it's going to be a little different because our A value in front is not 1. Here it's 1, and here's why. In the future, in this rest of the period today, you usually have to do 1 times negative 14, but 1 times negative 14 is negative 14, so we don't have to really worry about it when the A value is 1. But again, we'll get more into that in a little bit here. So let's list them out. So for those that weren't here, there were a couple people that weren't here Friday or yesterday, or just one of the days. Just go in order. 1 and 14. There's no way for me to get 5. Let's try 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. Can that somehow get me 5? Yeah. It can. 7, 6, 5, right, if I subtract them. So I'm going to go over to the right side, and I'm going to figure out what my signs are. It's just to keep you organized. This table, again, you could totally not do the table. But if you want to be organized and actually understand what you're doing and get a process going that never fails, this is it. Okay, so now, am I going to have a positive 2 or a negative 2? Negative 2 and a positive or negative 7? Positive 7, there we go. And here's why. Negative 2 times positive 7 gets me negative 14. Check. Negative 2 plus 7 gets me a positive 5. Check. Okay, so now we use those magic numbers and write that out. X minus 2, oh, that's supposed to be an X. X minus 2 and X plus 7, those are my now factors, equals 0. Now, again, totally up to you. You can separate them, solve, or you can just know what it is. Does anyone know what would make X minus 2 equal to 0? Yeah, positive 2. Okay, so really this becomes x minus 2 equals 0, and this becomes x plus 7 equals 0. But if you're someone that could tell me what the answer is without writing the step, please do that. I would never penalize you. Because here I just add 2 and I get 2. And I subtract 7 and I get negative 7 when you solve. Okay, take a breather. Okay. Always, please tell me if I'm going too fast, if you need me to explain something, especially with factoring, because this is something that's not going away, I promise. Okay, so we already talked about this. What do these solutions represent on the graph? It represents the x-intercepts. That's what you found. Seps. The x-intercepts. So you found 2 and negative 7. That means that the graph will cross the x-axis at positive 2 and at negative 7 is what that's telling you. And I know it's not the funnest thing in the world. Next semester, I think you guys will like next semester more than you like first semester. Next semester we get into like statistics, which is like super fun in my opinion because it's about real life, and we talk about like how long like something stays in your system and like calculating how long it would take to get something out of your system like caffeine and so on. Okay, so it's a pretty cool next semester, so you're just gonna have to bear with me this semester and learn the things that you need to know for like that college level if you're going to JC, if you're going to Moraine, and vice versa. Okay? So solving now when a is not 1. So this is new. So it's the same kind of concept, but now that a value is not 1. If you look up here like I talked about, here, a is 1, which is right here. However, if I scroll down here, a is not 1, it's 3 in this situation. So that makes a huge difference. If a is not 1, we have to do this thing called factored by grouping. Now I'm going to show you something because I wanted to see if maybe like it'll ring a bell from last year. Do you remember doing this last year? What multiplies? That's what you're doing right now. So like whoever you had last year, they might teach it differently than me, but this little x, if you remember doing all these problems with an x involved, that's what you're doing. It's the same thing from last year, but I'm teaching you like a concrete way that will never fail you. Okay? All right. But if you like the x method better, go for it. It's all up to you. Okay, so here. This is the only part that, well, actually a lot of it's different. Factor and solve for each. The first step is going to multiply 3 times 8, or the first term and the last term. Okay? That's going to get you your multiplies. So what multiplies to what number? What's 3 times 8? Good, 24. Good, I like how people were doing it in their head and you did not reach for that calculator right away. But the add still stays the same. It's still the middle, so negative 10. So the only difference is that you have to multiply the first to the last. Okay, the only difference for the mod table. And I like to write that on top at least for a little bit until you start getting used to what you have to do. Okay, so now again, here we go. Let's do our table. 24 divided by 1 is 24. That's not going to work. 24 divided by 2, 12. Can that somehow get me 10? It can. Can anyone tell me the signs that will work? What would 2 be? Positive or negative? Positive. Positive. Very good. Positive 2 and a negative 12 are going to be my answers. My magic numbers, I want to say. And here's why. Okay, I'm going to take it slow because this gets a little tedious. Just make sure you're really focused. I know it's not fun. I get it. But try your best to really try to stay focused. Negative 2 plus 2 is negative 10. Check. Done. Negative 2 times a positive 2. Ooh. Did we make an error? We did. Didn't we? Crap. We got to go back. Use your eraser. So that's how you know. Always check your answers. That didn't work. Because look, negative 12 times 2 is going to get me a negative 24. That's not going to work. We got to cross it out and keep going. There actually is another pair. 3 and 8, not going to work. 4 and 6. Can that get me 10? Yes. Okay, so sorry about misleading you there, but there's a good way for you to check your answers. I'm kind of happy that that happened because you can definitely check it to make sure. So 6 and 4. But they both have to be negative in order for it to work. Now let's make sure it works. So sorry for confusing you. Negative 4 minus 6 gets me negative 10. Check. Negative 4 times negative 6 makes a positive 24. So we're good. So now we found our numbers. That happens sometimes where there's more than one pair that works out, kind of. Okay. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and put steps here so that you don't forget. Let me see what this one's. Rearrange. Okay. Factor out the GCF. That wasn't. Okay. 3. This is step 3 in this process if you were to go above and look at it. If you were to look at those steps that were above, that's step 3. Now we're going to go into step 4. And it says, break down, replace the B term, which is that negative 10, with the chosen multiple. So what you chose. So we circled negative 4 and negative 6. So what we have to do is take the middle term and break it down into 2 separate ones. And here's what this means. I'm going to take this middle term, and I'm going to break this into negative 4x and negative 6x. All I did, and if you have a highlighter, you can highlight. I took this middle, and I broke it up into the 2 numbers that we found. And let me prove to you why we can do this. And like I said, I wish I knew this method in high school because we were not taught this way. We were taught guess, check, figure it out. Like, go off to the side, do this, do that. Like, we were not given this beautiful concrete method, and I'm so happy someone came up with it, I don't know, a couple years ago. But anyways, look, negative 6 minus 4 gets me negative 10, so that's mathematically okay. We're able to do that. Okay, now bring everything else down in black. So 3x squared, and you're going to have to write small, and I apologize for not giving you a lot of room because this gets a little tedious. Again, I know the first one's going to be harder, but just breathe and let's do it. We'll keep doing it over and over. This is called factor by grouping. Now the step 5 is going to be to group the first 2, then group the second 2. Whenever I say group, that means parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to group this guy in purple, and I'm going to group this guy next to it. Now this becomes like 2 separate GCF problems like we were practicing yesterday. Cover up this side, pretend it's not there. Don't make it super overwhelming. What is common between 3x squared and negative 4x? What's the only thing that's common? The x, good. So my GCF is going to be x, and then have your group ready to go. I'm just going to go slow and take it step by step. Okay, so now, like we were practicing, we're pretending like we're doing just this group. What's left? 3x squared divided by x is what? 3x squared divided by 1x. 3x. Good, 3x. Bring down your minus sign. Again, I'm covering this group up. Pretend that's not there right now. Just take it piece by piece. Negative 4x divided by x gets me what? 4. Good. Bring down the 4. Okay, breathe. Take a second. Again, this is probably one of the hardest topics in math. You just got to keep going with it. Now, come off to the side. Pretend that this one's not here. What would you tell me the GCF is between negative 6x and a positive 8? 2. Good, 2. But whenever there's a negative all the way out in front, like we talked about yesterday, you want to pull it out with it. So I'm going to pull out a negative 2 because that's the GCF. Get my black pen out. Oops. Minus 2. Okay, then covering this up. Pretend it's not there. Don't be overwhelmed by it. What is negative 6 divided by negative 2? 3. Bring down the x. Bring down 8 divided by negative 2. 8 divided by negative 2. Good, negative 4. Do you see something that happened? Do you see something that kind of stands out to you when you're looking at this? I know it's a lot to look at, but yes. Do you see how these two are the same? Now, this means that you can now factor that out because whatever is the same, you can also factor out. So, I'm actually going to give you a highlighter. We can take a minute break here as I throw my highlighters at you because it might help you. Ready? Too hard. Sorry. Oh! I'm so sorry. Okay. Yeah. It just woke you up a little bit, right? You already already have pink, right? I'll take one of them back. Remember when German hit me in the head last year? Were you here for that?
I think so.
All right. Alex. Oh, that was a really bad throw on my part. There you go. Okay. So, with one of your highlighters, please highlight the outside, like x minus 2 here. With your other highlighter, highlight the 3x minus 4. This is only going to be a visual thing for you to see that whatever is highlighted becomes a group. So, I'm going to write x minus 2 because that's a group. And I'm going to write out in blue 3x minus 4. So now this is now your factors. This is a factor, and this is a factor. Now we're back to what we did yesterday. I know there was a lot more steps than yesterday, but now we're back to what we did yesterday. And I, again, try to write small. If you want to, you can start writing. I don't know. I feel bad that you don't have a lot of room. Okay, so now we're going to set them equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0. And then 3x, oopsies, minus 4 equals 0. We did yesterday. Last step, here we go. What makes this guy equal to 0? What do I do to both sides? Add 2. So x equals 2 is my answer. Now this one, there's a couple more. We got to do two things. First, I have to add 4 to both sides. Gone. Yep. 3x equals 4, and then I have to divide by 3, so I get x equals 4 over 3. Okay. Give yourself like a pat on the back for getting through the first problem on this, because it is tough. I'm not saying it's easy by any means. It's probably one of the hardest topics for every student in math to ever get. Co-taught class, same issues. They have issues with it too. The higher level honors, same thing. Factoring is just one of those topics you either get or you don't, but you have to keep practicing. So please don't ever not do your homework if you're stuck. Try it. Keep going as far as you can, then stop. It is a hard topic, but you got to keep pushing forward. Okay? But if you stick with the procedure every single time, you will get better at it. Okay, let's do it again. But does everyone have it all written down first? Yes. Do I have loose leaf? Probably. Good question. Oh. Looks like Ishmael's got you. Yeah, if you're someone like, hey, I'm running out of room and you want loose leaf, let us know. I can definitely get you some loose leaf. I know some people write a little bit bigger than others. I barely could fit my handwriting on it too, so I feel your pain. Okay, I put a note for next year to make more space. Okay, if you were my pen, there it is. Okay, let's do it again. Whew, that was a lot, but let's do it again. You got this. Yep, stretch out if you need to. Okay, here we go. First step. Always is to multiply the first term, 2 times the last term. Yeah. And you get what? What's 2 times 9? 18. So even if you want to write this out for the very first couple problems so that you get used to it, then you don't have to write it out every single time. Again, as time goes on, you can start skipping steps that you feel is necessary and that you can do. Okay? So what multiplies, maybe I'll come up here so you don't run out of room. What multiplies to 18 and adds to what number? Yeah, negative 19. Now this one's going to be a little bit easier because it's right away. Always start with 1. 18 divided by 1 is 18. Is that somehow going to get me a negative 19?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and what would have to happen with the signs in order for this to be true?
The 18 has to be later.
Uh-huh. And? So if I have a positive 1, check that out. 18 and negative 18 and 1 gets me a negative 17, but I want negative 19. So they both have to be negative. Very good. So now I'm going to note to myself that those are those numbers. Okay. Second step. Break down the middle term. So here we go. This middle term is becoming the two things that I just said. So it's becoming negative 1a and negative 18a. And if it helps you to remember, take a highlighter and make a note for yourself that that's where it's coming from so you don't forget that that's where it's coming from. Okay, now bring everything else down. So I'm going to bring down the 2a squared. And bring down the positive 9, bring down the equal, bring down the 0. What should I do next? Thinking. Now it's called factor by grouping for a reason. That means that we're going to do group the first two in blue and then group the second two. All you're doing is putting the first two terms in a group and you're putting the second two terms in a group. That way you can factor something out. Again, piece by piece. If you have to literally put your hand over this so you don't get confused, do it. Okay, what is common between 2a squared and a?
They have an A.
They have an a, and that's always going to happen. You're always going to be able to pull something out here. You're going to be able to pull out just an a. So I'm going to pull out the a, and let's see what's left over. Okay, what is 2a squared divided by a?
2.
Very good. 2a. Bring down the minus. 1a divided by a, it cancels, and I'm just left with 1. If you need to write this out for yourself, for the sake of notes, you can. If you thought that that was fine, you don't have to write this out. But if you're someone that likes to write out what we did, divide by a, you can. Okay, now the next one. I'm going to cover this up. What's common between negative 18 and a positive 9?
It's cool.
It is. You want to take your shirt off. Yeah, a 9. Very good. But there's a negative out in front, so I have to pull that out as well. So I'm going to take out a negative 9. Oops. Negative 9. And see what's left over. When I divide both by negative 9, let's see what happens. Negative 18 divided by negative 9, 2. And then the a comes down. Positive 9 divided by negative 9 gets me a negative 1. And look at that. We're ready to go. The first two can be highlighted and the second two can be highlighted because that makes my groups. It does not matter which order you write it as long as they're grouped with each other. So this guy is going to group with each other, a minus 9. And then this guy is going to group with each other, 2a minus 1. This one seemed a lot easier than the last one. I think it's just because it was the first one. It was going a little slower. It was new. Now we're starting to get used to it a little bit, not too much. Now we have to separate them. They have to both equal 0. So this guy has to be equal to 0. A minus 9 equals 0. And 2a minus 1 equals 0. Solve for both of them, please. I think you guys all will be able to solve with 2 step or a 1 step. You should be able to solve for a for both. They're 2 separate problems. Solve from both and see what you get. Maybe check with each other and see if you're getting it right. When you're done, done only. I'm not rushing you, but just for those that are done, because there are some that are. Check and see if you got them right. Do you somewhat recall doing this last year? At least like this part. I'm sure you don't, because factoring is one of those topics that you just completely forget about once you learn it. But in math too, you guys spend a great deal amount of time doing factoring, and we're going to do it as well in here. So you might as well get used to it now, because factoring is not going to go away, unfortunately. I will be here after school every Thursday from this point forward. You're always more than welcome to come and see me, whether it's for math or for anything else. Okay, we're going to do another one together. We're going to go to 4. Okay. Yeah, we're going to go to 4. And then I think that's really all I care about. Okay. Number 4. So it looks different, right? Yes. It's the only one that's not equal to 0, but we can make it equal to 0. So the only new step in this one is just making sure that everything's on the left side. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to add that 2 over, and it has nothing to add to. So you're just going to rewrite it. 3x squared plus 5x plus 2 is equal to 0. Now it looks the same as what we were just doing. So whenever it's not equal to 0, you need to make it equal to 0. Is the only thing that you need to remember. Okay, now let's do this process one more time. What multiplies to what number? Careful. 6, and here's why. 3 times 2 gets me 6. And if you need to write that out somewhere, do that. 3 times 2 is how we got that. And then adds to the middle term, which is 5. Gotta be careful with the 6 and the 5. This is the one where people always get confused with 6 and 5. There's 2 ones that do it. There's 2 that satisfy it. You just gotta be careful. Okay, we have 1, 6, and 2 and 3. Now we gotta be careful here. Which one will add to 5? Because there's no minus signs if you notice. There's no -6 or -5, but it has to add to 5. Which one is it? Yeah, 2 and 3. So they're both going to be positive. Positive 2, positive 3. Found your signs. Again, this is just for you to stay organized. If you feel like you can skip the MA table, you can. So here we go. Here's the process. Again, it gets better every single time. Take the middle. And you're going to rewrite it with these numbers we just found out. So we have 2x, positive 2x, and positive 3x. In black, everything else is just coming down. I didn't do anything to these guys. I'm just bringing them down from the previous equation. Give you a second. Okay. Now what? This is called factor by grouping, or you group the first 2, group the second 2. Good. Group the first 2, group the second 2. I'm glad this one's coming up because this is a weird one. Now, again, cover it up. What's common between 3x squared and 2x? What's the GCF of those two? They both have x's. Perfect. Okay, so they both have x's. Pull it out. Which again, if you need to write out that you're dividing both by x, please do so. 3x squared divided by x gets me what? 3x. Good. Bring on the plus. 2x divided by x is just 2 because those went away. Now let's look at this one. This one's weird. Okay? So I have 3x plus 2. Look at that's already what I want. That's the goal. What's the only thing that's common between 3x and a 2? Kind of a trick question in a way. There's nothing, right? But what goes into everything, no matter what? What number? Yeah, 1. So if that's the case, you're going to pull out a 1. Good. I'm glad that you said that. So plus 1. Really all you're doing is taking out a 1 in order for you to continue with the problem. So everything else is going to remain the same, 3x plus 2, because when you take out a 1, you don't do anything to it. Get out our highlighter. I got this group. I got this group. And I want you to take it from here, and I'll give you your homework when you're done. And I'm giving you a lot of time in class to work on your homework because it's a very tedious process, and I want you to work with it with me in here, or work with a partner or whatever. Okay, so continue this problem, please, and go from there. You can actually, why don't you guys pause for 1 second? I kind of just want to go over something. I know it's probably in the middle of your thought process, but, bless you, your goal is always to get the same thing. So, let's go back to the other problem. If I wanted 2a minus 1, the only way for me to get 2a is for me to divide this guy by 9. So you can also use it to help you. Once you found this group, you can use it I better get 2a minus 1 here. If you don't get that, it's wrong. Then you did something wrong. So make sure that you're aware of that. These have to be the same. If they're not, there's an error somewhere, most likely a sign is probably what happened. So if I want 2a here, I can use my brain to be okay, the only way for me to get 2a is to divide 18 by 9. So you already found your GCF. Okay, so you could also use it that way. I know some people like to use that as well. Okay, go ahead and continue. Let me just write it out. Plus 2 equals 0. HW.
Yeah,